I thought, well, rather than it being from the company down, why don't we pull content from the customers up and put our customers on a pedestal and showcase the amazing work that they're doing in their daily life.
Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Behind the Upload. Behind the Upload is a video podcast that interviews entrepreneurs and marketers about their video marketing strategies and experiences, bringing you tools, tactics, and insight you can apply to your own brand. I'm Joy Dowd, your host. In this episode, I speak with Austin Distel, head of marketing at Jarvis.ai. Jarvis.ai is one of the best copywriting tools that uses GPT-3 to generate short and long-form content using AI. We talk a little bit about how exactly GPT-3 works and how all the new AI tools that have popped up over the past year work as well. But the main reason I wanted to talk to Austin was to break down the live trainings he does featuring members of the Jarvis community who share their knowledge on how to use Jarvis better. This video strategy creates both community engagement and is a free way to build up a powerful video library to train future customers. One thing to note, at the time of this recording, they just changed their name from conversion.ai to Jarvis.ai. We mentioned this in the interview, but you might hear the company referred to as conversion.ai a few times, but it is the same exact thing. For all the show notes, links, and transcripts, head over to behindtheupload.com. Now, enjoy the show. So cool. Thanks, Austin. Thanks for joining me. Before we kind of jump into Jarvis and video strategy, I wanted to get your explanation of what exactly GPT-3 is, because from some of your previous videos, you've sort of had the clearest explanation that I've seen of what it is, what it consists of, and what it can do and what it can't do.
Yeah, so I kind of think about, GTP3, which is the underlying AI of what Jarvis is built on. As kind of like your friend that has read most of the internet and can kind of consolidate all of the blog posts, tweets, and things that have been read into its own new language. That is completely original and will not duplicate itself over and over and over again, which is pretty cool because if you are a content creator, that's what you want. You want to be able to have a kind of global view of a topic, and then you can inject your own creativity in it by using things like tone of voice and by giving it structure and like, here's where I use a story. And so kind of what it does is enables you as a creator or a content writer to be promoted from like a junior copywriter into like more of a director editor. And I like that. It's like you're kind of outsourcing the lowest or the most taskful job because we know how much work it takes to research alone, much less than to get the first draft. And honestly, the biggest procrastination moment is the blank page. So many of us have a hard time going from blank page to first draft. And so that's what Jarvis really like measures the gap on. And then after that first draft is written, now you can go back in and spruce it up with, your own industry knowledge or creative stories or, personal experiences. And so that's kind of like why you're able to get a finished blog post or, social media post or email or whatever it is you're writing done in like 2 to 5 times the speed.
Yeah, it really does help you, like sort of just like a exoskeleton for your mind, like speed things up. Now, I did want to, with the underlying tech with OpenAI or GPT-3, I think one video explained that it had like scoured 10% of the internet from content previous to 2019. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. Yeah. And, when we think about what 10% of the internet is, like I would reckon to say about 90% of the internet is private. So private being, behind a paywall, behind a member login. And so, when they have to say 10% of the internet, it's most of just the public internet.
And does that include, aside from obviously like articles, blog posts, does that also include video transcripts? Like what's podcasts? What does the percent consist of? Do you know?
I don't know about the podcast. I would assume if those podcasts have been transcribed and put on a blog post, then absolutely. But I don't think it's like listened or watched everything. but anything that's written, it's gone through and scraped.
Okay. And another kind of just general GPT-3 question. So, I mean, Jarvis is built on using this technology. There are a lot of other companies that also popped up that are using it. How does one company use it differently than another? Like, I guess what's the sort of secret sauce between the companies using this open AI tech that like makes the outputs work better? Or like, this is kind of like an explain like in five question. Like, how does that work?
Well, you think about, it's kind of like I don't know, to make it easy, it's like a programming language. And just because you have access to the language, kind of the platform, you can build it, in different ways. Part of it is how do we just make it easy enough for, anybody to use. And so part of our job is to give the visual construction a really intuitive way to go about it, an organization. Secondly, if you want to think that there's, AI and then there's what is created, there's actually a middle bridge that we do. So if it knows all of this, all of the internet, then what we do is, hey, how do you give Jarvis some bumpers so that it can actually create what you want? So you need to have some rules around that. And so that's why we have over 50 different use cases. We call these templates. I like to call them skills because I think it's the most accurate description, because the skill is like a tweet. Well, a tweet versus a blog post, what's the difference in the rule base would be, well, tweets have to be, 240 characters or something. They're often punchy. They might use hashtags. Different than what a creative story might be. Sometimes out of a creative story, you want fiction to be boosted. So you don't want to pull from factual evidence as much. Whereas, if you're doing a report, you might want to have that setting for creativity. If you wanted to think about it as a dial, it's not exactly, but there's some tweaking that we do. There's a bunch of tweaks that we do to get it to create the result that's expected from each of these skills, from cold email, blog post intro, creative storytelling, add headlines, subject lines, stuff like that. Like we uploaded, all of our best, highest opened subject lines for emails and taught Jarvis, here's what good behavior looks like. Find the commonalities. And then, we also are friends with the guys at Digital Marketer. And so we're working with them, and we've consulted with a bunch of copywriters and content creators that are kind of like influencers. Maybe they're authors, maybe they're, just influencers in the blogging world, and said, hey, what does like good behavior look like? What is your highest performing or what's your best work? And so when you give patterns like this, Jarvis starts to connect the dots. And then the last layer, so that's what our magic sauce is. The last layer is, what you input. So in order to get a great output from Jarvis, you need our layer and you need your layer, which is tell me about your brand, tell me about your goals, the keywords you want to include, all of these things that are kind of like the sprinkles that create your unique cake. Because it really, it would just be, maybe pretty basic or general if you didn't do that. And so, yeah, it's important that the quality of Jarvis is also dictated by your quality inputting it in. And you can't be lazy there, but I recommend that you adapt it, maybe change the tone of voice, maybe change the keywords, and then you'll find better results.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point of, and thank you for the explanation. That really did clarify sort of a lot of like what the secret sauce is behind everyone's, all these different platforms out there. And, Jarvis, I've always been impressed with sort of the content it produced. But I think that is an interesting thing to note as well, where it's not magically going to write all these things for you. It's not going to spit out a fully formatted, perfect blog post. Like you got to give it some good inputs. You got to massage it. You got to kind of steer it, give it some direction of where you want it to go. And it really just amplifies something that you're doing, but it's not doing it for you.
Yep, exactly. And one thing I didn't mention, but I think is now worth mentioning is uh, there are different licenses for OpenAI, and so the license that new companies get today is not the license that we have. We have a more expansive license, so there's limitations on new companies, and there's actually more limitations on our competitors than there are us because we've acquired the companies that have the old licenses. Some of these limitations also include the length of output. And so we're the only company now that can produce long form content using OpenAI. And that's, in a public user friendly setting here. I know, like, for example, like Microsoft has like one of the first licenses, but they use it internally. So it's, if you want to think about something that the general public can use to create blog content, you could use a competitor and do it 400 to 600 characters at a time, or you could use ours that produces 1,200 characters and looks back 3,000 versus 600. And so that's part of it. And then recently we acquired another company that had this ability to command Jarvis. For most of the time, pretty much all the other companies you'll have to write something and then Jarvis finish your sentences. And so you begin writing and then it follows up with the next sentence and you kind of play this back and forth, right? And so with our recent acquisition, we were able to get the license and technology to be able to tell Jarvis what you want written, and then it will go out and write that instantly before your eyes without you having to actually write the first sentence or the paragraph. So that's a huge improvement, and that's called what we've named boss mode. and boss mode is pretty freaking cool when you start to think about the use cases. You can just say, hey, Jarvis, write a blog post or write a blog intro. It's not going to write the whole post. There's human involvement here. Okay. But you have to, if you want Jarvis to write the intro paragraph, you don't need to write the first sentence. You can just ask him to write it.
Yeah, I have on the channel. I have a demo of Boss Mode. I was messing around with it. Yeah, I mean, I've still just been dabbling in it, but so far, I mean, it's really just been amazing in the sense of like, I barely the templates you talked about, which were like the templates were very specific of like write a blog post intro, write a blog post outline. Now all that stuff, I barely touch them anymore. It's just like, okay, I can just go into Boss Mode and just write out. Actually, I mean, later on, I do have some questions that Boss Mode generated that we'll get to. That I'm just like, Jarvis, write out some questions for a podcast about video marketing. So we'll jump to those.
I like how.
But yeah, it's really been
very meta.
Yeah, this is going to get very meta. All right, so let's talk about. I just want to backtrack a little bit of like the origin of. So recently, the company changed names to Jarvis, but previously it was called conversion.ai. When did it start, and sort of what was the sort of initial formation of Conversion AI?
As many entrepreneurs are, we are sitting on a ton of unused domain names. And in 2016, we bought Conversion AI because we thought, hey, one day maybe, we'll figure out something to do with this thing. Our back then, our main company was useproof.com. Proof is the brand name. And still today, that's a great company, trucking along, leader in the industry. And as we started thinking about like, how do we continue chipping away at, building tools for marketers and content creators, the first one is social proof. It's a tactic that works literally in any industry and niche. So to increase conversion rates and, build trust and authority. So that was like our first, not our first tool, but one of the most successful tools we've created. Now, we were thinking like, well, how about for copywriting? How about for content creation? And honestly, like we're direct response marketers, as a team. And, you can see the whole team behind me. Like we're all, mostly from the marketing world. Half the team has owned marketing agencies in the past, and now we're applying that the this knowledge and understanding of the industry to Jarvis. So we were just trying to figure out how do we do it more effectively ourselves? How do we create better content and write copy that converts? And so when we started playing around with OpenAI, we decided to apply for the license. And we actually, with Proof, went through Y Combinator. It's a large startup accelerator out in California. And we raised a few million in funding after that for Proof. That then kind of like spun into, a lot of relationships in Silicon Valley and thinking, well, maybe we should think about trying to create an interface for OpenAI and see what, or for GTP3 and see if that works. And so in January, when we launched Conversion AI, it was kind of just like we built something cool for ourselves and maybe the public will like it. It was a total experiment. And within 30 days, it was super clear people wanted this and they were getting great results and they were super happy. And that was just built on the shoulders of our list at Proof. So that audience, same audience, we keep helping the same audience, these marketers and copywriters and conversion optimization guys. And now we're really happy to invite the content writing community as part of that. So it's been kind of growing over the last 8 years of building different products that stack up on top of each other. And now Jarvis is our golden child.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good example. Talking about 8 years of evolving, but also the tech didn't exist, and so that's kind of a good example of like the tech evolving with like what you're trying to achieve, but now you have the tools that make it easier to do it. And it's interesting you mentioned about community. So that sort of leads. No, when you said January, this started January 2020, correct? It just started this year.
Past January, yeah. This past January.
Okay. Oh, I didn't. Okay.
Wait, so it's July now, right? So it's just 6 months.
It is July. Okay, so you've only been around. So Conversion AI has only been around for 6 months.
Yep.
Okay. So that's even more impressive because my other question is there is a very active and thorough community on Facebook. So can you tell me about the origin of that community and how it grew and became so active so quickly?
Yeah, well, honestly, it started off, we actually have done a Facebook community before, back when we had we built a membership community called the Entrepreneur Alliance. That was in 2015 and 16. And, that was like our first step into, wow, we really like this. We really like talking to customers in rah, that like idea of we can be super close with them and understand, like build relationships. Well, we kind of like didn't do that at Proof and we began to miss it. And so when we launched Jarvis, we wanted to like build a tighter bond with our customers from the beginning. Secondly is we didn't know what the future roadmap of the product exactly looks like. So we decided we wanted to have it built by customers, built on their feedback. And rather than build something that we think they want, why don't we just ask them what they want all the time? And then whenever they ask for it, we'll build it. And so that's kind of when, in the beginning stages, like the early access launch. And then, there's the, we would like close it up, shut it down, figure out pricing. All of it has just kind of been a back and forth dance with customers to build something they want. And over time, you might see in the community how fast we push out updates. And, when users ask for something or they give recommendations, like everything's a feedback loop. We have little feedback loops inside the product where you can like flag stuff and that notifies us in Slack that maybe we need to update some settings or something changed. Why is everybody flagging this template? And so it's like creating all these little mechanisms for customers to help create the product is why, in the Facebook group is one of them. I think that's why we've been able to scale so quickly is people love being a part of a company that listens to them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been very active and it's interesting because there's also just a lot of active people in there as well that, I don't think they work for Jarvis, but they just are big fans and also help out a lot and share a lot of tips and share a lot of insight. Now, I know we haven't talked about video yet, but this is leading to video. So can you explain the video strategy that you've been doing so far with your webinars?
With the webinars, yeah. So, honestly, two things. One, I like to do the easiest way possible to get stuff done. I don't want to try and create extra work on me. And so one way that would create a lot of extra work on me is to try to figure out how everybody wants to use Jarvis, all of the different ways, then become an expert in that way, and then try and figure out how to communicate it and teach that. That sounds like a lot of work. So instead, I thought, well, rather than it being from the company down, why don't we pull content from the customers up and put our customers on a pedestal and showcase the amazing work that they're doing in their daily life. And these are experts in their field that also have audiences that we get to leverage, but not always. I don't require that they email their list and all of this, but often they are also affiliates. So, they are, like Rachel Peterson. She's AKA the queen of social media. And she uses Jarvis to co-create her content with her. She writes her own stories, but then that is reformatted, transcribed, put into different ways, for social media, for blog posts, for videos, all of this stuff, with the help of Jarvis. And so her training, we don't really call them webinars because webinars have this idea that there's a sales pitch at the end. And if you've ever attended one of our trainings, there's a soft ask like, hey, if you're part of the community that hasn't bought yet, you should. Now you see what it can do. But honestly, it's mostly about training our existing users on how the experts are using it, and get some tips. The fun part about it is I also end up learning. So I don't know exactly how Rachel Peterson created 3 months of social media content in 3 hours, but she did. And so I want to figure out, how did she do that with Jarvis? Sean Vossler's crazy, mind. He wrote the 7-figure copywriter. And the way that he builds sales letters with Jarvis is pretty unique because, he has structure and kind of like a formula, but the way he like copies and pastes stuff and like uses inputs from Jarvis or outputs from Jarvis as inputs again, and then like builds it down the page, it's just pretty cool. So, that's kind of that's our strategy is we just use, we can talk about the tech, but every Thursday I bring in a customer from the community that's an expert. And the order in which I've pulled these is I pulled the Facebook community and I just said, hey, what are you using Jarvis for? What do you wish you could use Jarvis for? What are where are your holdbacks at? And if there's not already a training to refer them to, then, whoever has the most upvotes on this training will win. So I'll be like, who wants to figure out how to use Jarvis for Facebook ads? Or how about for Google My Business or SEO meta descriptions? Like, all of these are different use cases. And so how do I find the SEO expert to talk about Google My Business? Well, he does this professionally for a living and he has like all of these clients and he has like 30 VAs now that use Jarvis, and they don't have to speak perfect English because Jarvis speaks the perfect English. So if they can just do the research on the client, feed that into Jarvis, now can output with, a right Google My Business listing. So these are the kind of things like I didn't know how people were using it. I don't think I would have ever thought about that because as a SaaS guy, I don't need Google My Business. But yeah, these are kind of like the strategy behind it. And we do collect leads, but I actually will explain in a bit why I think that we might switch platforms and no longer collect leads.
Okay. But yeah, the thing that always just struck me was that it was really interesting because my perception of time has totally been off for the past year and a half. So you've only been around for 7 months, and you have an extremely active community, and that they've also have such like really great use cases already in such a short amount of time, and that you're able to source from them. and that they put together, a really good presentation. So yeah, training probably is a better word, because to describe this, it's about an hour long live session where you are hosting the guest, whoever's doing the training is sharing usually like a PowerPoint, or not PowerPoint, like a slideshow and a live demo sometimes. And then there's a live Q&A at the end for anyone watching live. And then you turn that video into a recording that people can watch whenever. Um, yeah, it's just really impressive. Everyone has been sourced from the Facebook group that you've gotten to share their knowledge or to create a presentation. They're all
Yeah.
Facebook users. Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. And yeah, so do you want to walk me through the behind the scenes tech of what you were currently doing, and then thoughts of, how this might change?
Yeah. So, um, shout out to like my friends at Demio. Grew up with one of them. The other guy's also a close friend. And they have built a pretty impressive platform, especially for, I think they have the hands down best platform for the community aspect of a webinar, interacting with that chat channel, throwing in call to actions, adding in helpful handouts. I think it's so easy to use as well. And I really appreciate the automatic email follow-ups that everybody gets. So they have to opt in for the webinar. They get followed up with, 24 hours, 1 hour, and 15 minutes before the webinar. And then they automatically get the replay link at the end once it's published. And so honestly, I don't have to manage like setting up Active Campaign, doing Zapier integrations. It's just kind of, you get what you get. The downside is that recording quality is at 720. And when for a product like ours that you're writing text, maybe 16 point or whatever, it's hard at 720p to see that in the recording. And so that's been our biggest challenge with it. And with those leads, I always poll the audience, what percentage is new, are not using Jarvis and that are, and it's between 50 to 70% are using Jarvis, their current customers. So between 20 or 30 and 50% aren't. And that's, not to say that they're all new leads either. They're just not using it so far. So they might already be a lead in our database somewhere else. So really, it's not a lead generation tactic, but more of a community building, because we get free trainings from experts. We get to associate ourselves with those experts. We build, community. And most of those leads also are probably from the expert on the training. It's probably not from our own marketing efforts. It's probably they have brought in their own audience to watch them, and they have their affiliate link on the back end. So really, like, it's not a marketing effort. And if I want to impact as many people as possible through our trainings, I think that removing an opt-in wall will be best. I also know that since our Facebook group is so highly engaged, that if I could somehow stream it right into our Facebook group, I will get incredibly high engagement. And people won't have to be like, well, where is it uploaded? Is the recording up yet? Like, I answer that question a billion times a day, and it's frustrating. Because it's like, if you just like search in the group, but you find it, but I get it. People are lazy and they want the content, not where you've put it, but where they are. And they are in the Facebook group. So listening to that feedback and understanding it, I believe that we'll probably switch over to StreamYard. No, sorry, Restream. Restream, I believe, is let me make sure. Let me find the domain.
For hosting the stream as well. Restream traditionally was like a multi-streaming, like you send your signal to them, they send it to Facebook.
Restream.io.
You're using that to host the webinar as well?
Yeah, so using that to host the webinar. And then what I also like is like I can post it in our Facebook group, on our Facebook page, on our LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And I could also have a private room if I wanted on Zoom, and have those like all going simultaneously. So the reach is magnified. And then I like the production. The recording quality is pretty good. Um, I like that it has a branded look around it. There's a frame around the guest, their screen share, the host. It all interacts really well, and kind of like you can do this real time conductor board of like, you know, hey, we're going to screen share here, highlight this person, highlight the guest. And then you can also see the stream of comments are actually the real comments on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, or not Instagram, but on Facebook, on YouTube, LinkedIn. And they kind of come up on the panel, and I can actually highlight those and then do it as like a featured commentary. So I like all these little features, and I think I can get more reach that way. I think the production quality looks higher. So that's where my mind's at.
Yeah, I think those are some good points. And it's interesting going back to when you first said, okay, that 70% of the people watching the current webinars are already existing customers. So it's a good for support. It's probably also good to help prevent churn because now people can think of other ways to use Jarvis that they might not have thought of. So then they remain customers, but it's not reaching unknown people. So yeah, getting it, because right now it's like you currently have to register at a registration wall and then you get the link. And then I guess at the back end, people could still discover this on YouTube. But it's already after the fact. So now that you can stream it to multiple platforms and have a better look and possibly have higher resolution. I'm assuming also the screen share is higher resolution. People can read the text now. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I want to do some creative stuff like have the stream on our Facebook and then run retargeting ads with that as like a post in the news feeds of our prospective audience because we run a lot of paid ad spend. I can also use YouTube and all that. So I think that's part of it. I know like if people are sharing it and commenting it, I can acquire new audiences as well. Since it's social media and public, it's not behind an email gated wall. There's downsides, of course, though. Like I'm not collecting any emails. And then if, for sales presentation, like there's no global call to actions, across like I wish I could have like a comment that shows up in all of the comment threads where I just type it out, or I have like some kind of like CTA, but that's what Demio does. And the conversion rates are really high. I'll have like 50% of people click on that. If I do like hey, start your free trial, like super high conversion rates of people that will click a call to action in Demio. Which is cool. And I can't do things like polls or give out handouts without it being easy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's always trade-offs there's no one perfect. Well, I mean, this isn't one platform because now you're going to multiple platforms. So it's not, you got the limitations with all of them. Have you thought about other types of formats that would be more reaching top of funnel type people that aren't current users, might not be aware of Jarvis? Have you been thinking about other types of video formats for that?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually hired a expert video personality, if you want to say. Like he produces his own content in his basement for us, though, and it's super high quality, it's witty, and it's punchy and short. But they're going to be like more concise trainings. One of the top feedback that we've gotten about the trainings is that they're just too long. At 1 hour, they 2x speed it. It's still 30 minutes. And sure, you like learn a lot of tips here and there, but my goal of the training is not to just be a demo of Jarvis. It's to really get them to the end goal. Their goal is a finished blog post. Their goal is a Google My Business. So I think it would be a disservice if I shared, well, here's how you use the Google My Business template. It's like, okay, that's part of it. But what is the real result they want to get? Like make a Google My Business that beats your competitors in your local area, and you earn all of the business and you get at the top of search results when people search in maps, for example. So that's kind of what trainings are for. It's to deliver real value rather than just being a demo, the technical demo of the product. but people also want that. They want the short answers when they're in the moment. So how do we create content that is relevant at the exact moment they need it into the context of their situation? It's probably inside of the software. You can probably have a play button. It's like, how do I use this? And why do I use it? In the moment, rather than trying to go to our YouTube and watching. So, how do we create these like 3 to 5 minute witty, punchy videos that create great brand value and are entertaining to watch?
And these are kind of targeted for like onboarding, getting people up to speed quickly, using the product.
Yeah. I think it's also to give them confidence if they are, dragging their feet on getting started because they are daunted that they're about to use artificial intelligence to write their copy for them. That can be scary for some folks. So they want to do a little like due diligence. And, I did this, for example, when I migrated our sites over to Webflow. I went through their university, and that is actually part of the inspiration for this training content, is because they made that migration just so seamless and amazing. So, that's what I think that our future video content is going to be about, and that's more on the education side. Of course, we'll have like sales videos and the things like that in the future as well, or already created. But yeah.
When you're posting the videos up on YouTube, is there any YouTube specific stuff you've been doing as far as titles, description, SEO? Have you seen any traffic from YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been 6 months now of having a YouTube channel. We've grown to like 2,500 subscribers, which is pretty sweet. We just basically post weekly content every Thursday. I think that's going to grow a lot when we start promoting the YouTube live rather than our Demio opt-in. So that'll be exciting. Do the classic SEO stuff, right? You want to have the keywords people are searching for in the title. I choose my titles very specifically. I have the description, that is it's keyword heavy, but it is not repetitive. So, talks about their desires, talks about their fears, introduces the expert. Why are they an expert in relation to this subject? And then, of course, you have to have all of the mentioned tools and then all of the call to actions. And then I have like a set of hashtags, or what are they called? They're basically hashtags on
keywords.
All of the keywords, right? That I think you could put up with 5 or 10. So that's what I do. I do it on all of them. I took like Sonny Lenarduzzi's course on YouTube SEO a couple years ago, and that's still, those little like nuances are what stuck with me.
Now, are you using Jarvis to write out your descriptions? Are you feeding it stuff, or are you just doing this from hand?
Pretty much, I'll just tell Jarvis the title and I'll have it write the YouTube description, but I'll make sure that sometimes I'll have to do some editing because I know what the actual person, the expert, talked about and what also got responses. So I sometimes will end up changing the title after the production. So I'll like in the beginning sell it as one thing, but then come to find out people were here for the training for a different reason, and I'll make that the headline point, and my original idea is the subheadline.
So is that sort of based on the webinar or the training was going, the live training was going, and then you saw like a spike in people sharing comments and being like, "Oh, that's awesome," or okay, so that's also, I guess, another awesome reason for having the live streams where you can really get that sense, that real time feedback of what people responded to.
Yeah, we something I learned from the Go Live expert Molly Montgomery. Molly, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Molly, if you're listening to this. But go look up on the Academy. And you'll find her. She taught me whenever you're going live, you want to have a Molly Mahoney. Molly Mahoney is the Go Live expert, and she recommended that whenever you're throughout the webinar, she introduces everybody and says, "Hey, if you get a golden nugget, I want you to hashtag nugget and then tell me what just stood out to you." And so that is a really cool way to go back and look at the comment thread later on and see what resonated with people. And then you can always like go back and retweet that or highlight that person. Even throughout the webinar, and I plan on doing this now with Restream, it's like if somebody hashtags Nugget, I can just bring them on screen and showcase their, I can overlay that comment and show everybody, hey, this person took away a golden nugget.
Yeah, that's an excellent tip. And I feel like another great way to like get that real time feedback and then apply. So you're also, because you said you focus a lot of time on the title, and your video titles are very kind of specific on like the output that you'll get from this. Is that sort of something that you're trying to focus on when you write the titles?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's like also an SEO play for us to rank. I would love to be at the top of, how to create a great blog post. It's like all of these like very hard to get keywords, but as we continue building that, I'm setting my seeds. So, recording content, getting that transcribed, and then eventually like we'll create more and more formats of that. We're just, only a team of 7 people. So, it's not like we can, we don't have an endless amount of time. But I try to do the things in the most effective way with the time I do have. And so, yeah, focusing a lot on the title and the first few sentences in the description are key.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so I did say at the beginning, I had Jarvis write some questions out. So one of those questions was, what was your biggest learning moment about hosting videos online? And that was an AI generated question.
Biggest learning moment from hosting. Honestly, it is. So when I was 24, I'm 28 now. So 4 years ago, I recorded 120 hours of content. The year before, I had recorded like 1 hour of content. And so I just remember that year. It was a hard year. Kind of the end, I kind of felt burnt out. But, all like hundreds recording, being on camera for hundreds of hours, you just get comfortable in front of the camera. It stops becoming irky. And I think you just got to roll with the process, enjoy the process, and like just kind of commit to a specific period of time. I did 12 months. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this for 12 months minimum. And I'm going to learn about audio, color grading, visual effects, editing styles. I started studying, all of the top people like Casey Neistat and like, trying to find a style that meets my style. And like, how do I want to, I look at movies differently now. I look at, all these production qualities. I appreciate your production quality. I understand how you thought about setting the scene. And then when we did our podcast, that was the next year. So first year was like a year of video. The next year was a year of podcast. And we got our Scale or Die podcast up for 7 weeks in a row as the new and noteworthy for tech and apps.
That's awesome.
And so it was, that learning lesson as well, doing 25 episodes of that. And what I like personally doing is an Austin thing, but I like having a finite period of time. So I like to do seasons. I don't like an ongoing, endless treadmill of content because it's just daunting to me. So I'd like to say, hey, season 1, we're going to focus on this. Here's, the topics that we're going to talk about. So like the SEO series or the ad series. And so, yeah, I think people appreciate that too. And you could even, what we do is we do a series in a batch now. So we'll try and batch as many as we can for podcasts, put them all together in like, a week or two, and then drip those out for 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's a good tactic, batching, and that's also just a good mental way to like look at it for seasons, and instead of like I'm gonna start a podcast. Oh my god, how am I gonna do 100 episodes? What am I gonna talk about? If it's okay, I'll just do a season of 10 episodes, and that's a bit more manageable. And then you do it, and then I guess that's sort of like either could be an end because you said you're gonna do a season of 10 episodes, or you continue and you shift focus and do another season. And when you said you were recording for 100 hours, what were you recording? Just stuff for a YouTube channel? What kind?
Yeah, basically we had a membership called the Entrepreneur Alliance. It was a paid membership where they got for $30 a month, they get like online marketing tutorials and trainings where I would like pull my friends in the room and say, hey, how'd you grow Dollar Beard Club, so fast? Show me the actual funnel metrics and the ad creative that's working for you. So like just doing that, it's a video training. It's kind of what we're doing here. It's kind of prepared me for what we're doing with Jarvis. Similar kind of content, but also like I would make it more robust and include a lot of swipe files and giveaways and all of that. So that was what that 100 hours of recorded content was.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. So, been talking for a while. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share where people can go learn more about you and about Jarvis?
Yeah. So they can learn more about me at distel.com, Distel. I mostly talk about like Jarvis a little bit, mostly like travel hacking is like a passion of mine. So I'm here in Austin for 3 weeks every month, and then I go either out of the city or out of the country for a week every month. And then let's see, I also talk a lot about subscriptions. So I wrote this book called Subscription Secrets, and it is my insights on the subscription economy and actually a tactical way to get your first 1,000 raving fans that are paying you monthly. And so it's something that I very much believe in. And that's why I wrote the book alongside with Jarvis, actually. So Jarvis wrote part of the book, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Was this part of the 7-day book writing? Jarvis, I know there's someone in the community that has a 7-day book writing course for using Jarvis.
Yeah, Darby Rollins helped me write it with Jarvis, and so he basically like helped extract my knowledge about the subscription economy, put it into a timeline, a series. Here's the chapters. Then we use Jarvis to pull in like kind of industry information and stories. So if I'm like, hey, I want to include the story of how Netflix grew. Like, what's the origination story behind Netflix? And so like Jarvis can help expand upon that. And then there's of course editing and all of that. So it's a pretty easy read. It's like 100 pages.
Cool. And I'll link to it in the show notes. Is there any overlap? Anything you want to share from the book? Any overlap between getting your first 1,000 subscribers and video, or anything you want to share? In regards to that overlap.
So we have used the same one. I think it's a 40-second video as our sales video for the past 7 months. We have epically high conversion rates on our site, and I don't talk about the product all that much. I highlight our customers' reactions to the product. And the way I got those reactions, those sound bites or video bites, is when we onboarded. So we did this founder member launch, or like a early access launch of Jarvis. And it was like every day we would let in like 10 people. And so that really built up a lot of hype and a lot of demand for it, which is cool. But then that also allowed our team to individually onboard and welcome new users on Zoom. And then we recorded all of it. And we used grain.co, I think it's called. It's a Zoom extension plugin. And so what it allows you to do is allows you to kind of like highlight bits and pieces from the Zoom and export them as individual clips and transcribes them. So you could actually highlight the words and then it'll chop the video where those words are. So I can like highlight a testimonial and then it'll export that testimonial from the video. And so then I just stitched together all of our best testimonials and made the video out of that. And it was pretty easy to do and it works really well. And so, yeah, I'd recommend that. I think the more that you can highlight your customer and the emotional, visceral reaction to your product and like how they describe it, listen intently to the words they use, because you can use that in your copy. then it'll perform pretty well. No matter, I can't imagine a world in which if you use customers' voices and testimonials, it won't perform well. Like that would never match up to me. So I think it's a pretty surefire way to at least create a great attention grabbing moment for prospects.
And I think that's also just a great way to add social proof as well. And you're just getting that on video and another video way to get social proof. But that is a great tip. So thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Austin. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to help, guys. And look forward to see you on the inside of at Jarvis. Come on into the Facebook community and say hi.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. And please leave a 5-star review or comment in whatever app you're joining us from. YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, especially iTunes. You know how it works, especially with iTunes. That feeds the algorithm. Show gets recommended to more people. It grows. We do more episodes. You get more insights. Everyone wins. And you can find videos from this episode, transcripts, links to everything mentioned over at behindtheupload.com. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in a future episode.